peace, prosperity, and love, beautiful people. Welcome to Gracefully Imperfect, a podcast for the Black and African diaspora in material of socioeconomics, politics, religion, and so forth. The centrality of this podcast is immersive empathy, introspection, deep thought, soul-serving conversation and communication, all in the light of unlocking the keys to vulnerability and transformation. During our time together, we will engage in topics related to mental and spiritual health experiences, the intersectionality of mental health and creativity, identity and culture, and any and all things related to healing from trauma, gathering insights, cultivating a deep sense of knowing, and repairing soul wounds. In the essence of communal love and collective consciousness, let us open our minds, lighten our hearts, settle our spirit, access soul intelligence, and affirm the richness of our humanity.
Peace, love, blessings and abundance to all of you who are tuning in on another episode of Gracefully Imperfect. It is I, Kyle Toon, and I'm back at it again. So glad to be back on this platform. So grateful to see another day. So grateful to be able to have breath in the body that myself, my family, my close loved ones, my kinfolk are all in good health, and that even though there is a lot of geopolitical, domestic political scares, pains, major challenges, including with natural disasters, with what's going on in Altadena, the wildfire in Altadena, in the greater LA County, as well as the floods in Kenya, as well as the fire in Ghana that took out an entire market. We're talking about thousands of people, families affected by fire in Ghana that took away their livelihood, the way that they make money, the way that they flourish within their own economic system. And through it all, I am grateful for the help that God has provided me, my family, and the close ones that we hold dear. And so I just want to say, for those who are tuning in, thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you so much for choosing this podcast out of the hundreds, even thousands of podcasts that are out there. Gracefully Imperfect is about unlocking the keys to emotional vulnerability and transformation. And we do that by exploring a plethora of topics related to mental and spiritual health, family, culture and identity, morality, consciousness, ethics, and all the sorts. This is about really, really digging deep into our memories, our experiences, our knowledge bases, our cultural wisdom, our ancestral wisdom. And even sometimes that may not come to an actual crystallization of knowing. Sometimes it just leads to more questions, and that's okay. It's all about consciousness raising, and it's all about getting to know self within the context of our history, our present circumstances, and our future strivings. So thank you all for being here. Last episode was about shame. And if you have not checked that episode out, I encourage you to go back there and really take a listen. And don't just take what I have to say and try to apply what I have to say to your life, I encourage you with that conversation and all the future ones, even the ones today, to pull, sift, and sort. Yes, discriminate what I have to say, because I want you to apply it to yourself, your social system, your communal and family system. I want you to apply it for you. And in order for it to resonate, you may have to be very deliberate on what you gather from my own disclosure. So I hope with that leading into this conversation, this intimate conversation, that you're able to find commonalities, draw upon your own experiences, your own knowledge bases, what you've witnessed, what you've seen, what you've been a part of, what you read, what you felt, and really take away something that is vital to creating that type of soul stirring, spiritual enlightening change. So today, I would like to take this time out and to really look at the antidote for shame. The antidote for shame. The last episode, I focused mostly on just how shame manifested within my own life and how it wrecked shop, how it is a silent killer and that it is pervasive and that it distorts self-concept, identity, perception, the way in which I showed up in my own relationships with my wife, even as father. I spoke about how shame disguises itself because it's so sneaky that you think that you're just experiencing anger and aggression. And once that anger and aggression subsides, you start questioning your existence and your value and your worth. Talked about all of that. And so now I would like for us to really get into what is it? What does it take for shame to be counteracted with something so that shame is not leeching on other emotional forces in a discreet, secretive, and clandestine way? After reading a book by Resma McKenna, he is a licensed clinical social worker, and he wrote a book called My Grandmother's Hands. He spoke about how trauma stays in the body. And because it stays in the body and it creates that distress and that pain within the body, the only way to attack it and the only way to counter it is through the body. And the first thing that he refutes is using logic and your cognition and thinking and more thinking and analysis to get through trauma. Now, what I'm not trying to do is equate just the emotional force of shame to trauma. Shame is it's an ingredient. It's a manifestation of trauma. And so when one experiences some type of overwhelming, painful, and intense situation, event, etc., shame can be the result of that trauma-induced situation, activity, event, etc. And so my shame, I knew that I could not attack it once I got that insight from Resma McKenna about how traumatic things stays within the body. That's why we feel these different types of sensations that are aggravating, that creates so much stress and tension that it's nerve-wracking. I knew that I could not attack it with intellect. So what is it that made the shame go away? Well, let me tell you right here, right now, the shame is not fully eradicated. I still battle with vestiges of shame today. I just know now that when it comes up discreetly, silent, secretively, and clandestine, like, I know how to counter it. And I'm going to share that. What I've learned through my research of, shame and trauma, whether that trauma is racial trauma, cultural trauma, ancestral trauma, intergenerational trauma, that it typically does produce some type of self-negative feeling about one's existence, one's human beingness. You start looking at yourself like an alien, like you don't belong here, that you're not deserving of love and connection and community and warmth and feeling good and feeling pleasure. And so because of those things attack really the spiritual core of a human being, and it attacks at the human ideals of striving, thriving, becoming more. That in order to really combat that is to really look at the core and confront the core. I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about, Kyle? So I want to ask you this. When you're dealing with shame, when shame comes up for you, how do you speak to your shame? There should be some type of communication with your shame, just like with any other unpleasant emotional experience. I'm serious. In order to really understand how to get around this thing, not get around, to get through, you need to understand where you are right now. Do you speak to your shame? Do you communicate with it directly? Do you confront the falsehood, the deception, the lies that outpour from shame? Or do you repress? You bury it deep down into your body, hoping that it doesn't come back out, hoping that you can keep it under lock and key with no chance of escape. So please contemplate on that question. How do you speak to your shame? Because I used to speak to my shame by ignoring it or trying to use my thinking and analytical skills to dissect it. What they say is when you are overwhelmed, and that overwhelming is contextualized by a traumatic experience, that your frontal lobe, the part of your brain that provides you the executive functioning of thinking and perceiving and judging, making decisions, goes offline. So if that goes offline, trying to think through it is a no-go. It's going to create more distress. It's going to create more chaos, more anger, more emotional upset. And eventually that's going to lead, potentially, to some darkness and depression. So to combat this thing is not to think through it. It's not to use your intellect, no matter how emotionally intelligent, spiritually intelligent you are. Self-forgiveness is the key. I remember growing up in the Baptist church and always hearing the preachers speak about forgiveness. Forgiveness for those who trespass against us. Forgive those who have done us wrong, who has committed injustices. And then also seeking God's forgiveness for our sins. And so as a child, I only conceptualized forgiveness as something that can be granted to me or I grant to someone else. Never was it a concept that I can forgive myself for my past, for the issues that I've created, for the problems that I've created, for the traumas that I have manifested. So that became a very radical idea. And so I started doing self-lovingness and self-kindness meditations. And I found those through alchemy. It's a mental health app. And I started doing those where I'm speaking to myself in a meditative state. Eyes closed, in a dark room. Sometimes I'm walking in nature. But I tend to the self and I'm looking within and I tell myself that I love you. And I know that you've been hurt. And I know that you have hurt people. And I know that you're trying. And I know you're trying to make an effort to become more morally and spiritual conscious. And you're trying to perfect your character. And for that, I forgive you. I forgive you for what you have done. I forgive you for the things that you have said, that you have regretted saying, for the actions and inactions that did not produce positive results. I forgive you. And so I will continue to do these self-lovingness and self-kindness meditation because I need to continue to remind myself that my past traumas, my past adversities, my past relational issues, the chaos, the self-destruction, the self-sabotaging that I once was central to no longer defines who I am, who I'm becoming, and how I want to spiritually develop and grow in this world and in the next. So I charge all of you, forgive yourself. That doesn't mean not taking responsibility. That does not mean not being accountable for your mistakes and your accidents, for your misjudgments. It means extending yourself grace for your human beingness. We still have to be responsible and accountable for our actions. We must confront what we have done, no matter how big or small, no matter where it lands on the scale of severity. We must confront it. We must own it. We must hold on to it. And we must apply action in order to improve the conditions of ourselves, the people around us, and the context and systems that we're in better than it once was. So the question is, are you going to forgive yourself? The question is, how difficult or how troubled is your past in keeping you from speaking to yourself gently, with compassion, with grace, within the context of self-kindness and forgivingness? It's not, it can be hard to look within and to really own the nastiness and the ugliness, regardless if it was intentional or not. So I know that I am going to continue to look within and to continue to reconcile with the parts of myself that I am not the most proud of. However, if it wasn't for those missteps, those mistakes, those misjudgments, that poor behavior, then I would have never had the impetus to seek spiritual growth and development. So, family, as you move, maneuver, and groove through your week, through your day, take some time out to speak to your inner self with love, with compassion, kindness, and attuned care. Remember, unlocking the keys to emotional vulnerability is not something that's just done in one sitting, not in one podcast episode either. It is a lifelong commitment. It is an enduring mission. It does not stop. So be revolutionary in your choices. Be revolutionary in the energy that you put into your spiritual growth, development, and awareness. Yeah. So I want to close by saying thank you for being here and listening. Thank you for reflecting. Thank you for contemplating. Thank you for looking within, as I am looking within with you in this moment. And hopefully we can continue to co-journey with each other and build on our moral and spiritual consciousness, because that is what mental health is all about. It's knowledge of the self. It is the harmony that one needs in order to live a balanced, joyful, flexible, and adaptive life. So I'm grateful for this episode, The Antidote of Shame. I can't wait for us to be a part of the next conversation. I ask all of you who are tuning in to share this podcast with a loved one, with a peer. I also ask you to subscribe if you have not. Leave a review on Apple, on Spotify, and check out the show notes. I'll be putting some information in there about the Substack that I have, that I'm writing. I write prose poetry and personal reflective essays. My poetry anthology, The Depths Below, that will be in the show notes. The Instagram, which with everything that's going on right now with Meta, DEI bans, I'm thinking about going away from there. But until then, I still have an active Instagram account, the personal website, and yeah, check those out in the show notes. If you need consultation, if you need life coaching, if you need an empathetic ear, if you need a speaker, a trainer, a facilitator in relation to spiritual and mental health, creativity, emotional vulnerability and expression, as well as anything related to moral and spiritual distress within the context of the Black experience and military life, I'm also available for that. So please let me be a resource for you, for your community, for your people. Let's build together. Let's maintain together. Let's sustain together. It's been great. I've loved this. Come on back for the next episode. Peace, prosperity, and love. The revolutionary kind.